When I joined User Evidence, I wanted to understand the founder behind the company, not just how he was building it, but why. Evan Huck has this grounded, uncommon way of thinking about risk, leadership, and life itself. And a lot of that perspective comes from his near-death experience, getting buried alive in an avalanche. That's where this episode starts. We're on to the fun part of the day. We're going to go ski at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort.
Yeah, we're in Cody Lot. We're gonna go get some turns in. What do you call it?
So we just brought two of my personal stunt doubles. A much better skier than I am. Hayden and Mel. User Evidence with us. All right, so we are about to start skiing and snowboarding, and I think one of the questions I probably got to start with is the Avalanche incident. So when I was doing research and interviewing for my current role, that was one of the first things that I saw. So can you share like what happened?
So for some context, so we lived in San Francisco at the time. And we were just kind of like weekend warriors that would go like whatever, 3 or 4 weekends a week. So we didn't know much about, I mean, obviously I'd seen avalanches in movies and heard about it, but never thought that would happen inbounds. And so this avalanche happened at Palisades, like inbounds, like actually right below a chairlift. But it was actually on that trip I was alluding to where we ended up choosing to live in Jackson. So it was the first stop on that. So we drove from San Francisco out to Palisades in Tahoe. And it had snowed like 6 feet over the previous 2 days. And so we're like, sick, like let's ride. And it was a delayed opening. It was like mountain opens at 9, but they were blasting and stuff for a couple hours. But yeah, so we take this chair called KT22 up. The first half of the run was super sick. It was like stomach deep powder, which is insane. But we got down to a bench and just like stopped to take a rest. And then somebody actually triggered the avalanche from above us. And it has a 6-foot crown, which like measures the height of the avalanche. So that's big. And so like a lot of snow now coming down the mountain real fast. And so I got hit from behind. I heard someone yell like, oh, and just like to see a little bit of it, and then got hit pretty much right away.
So it was behind you and you didn't get to see it?
Yeah, so it came from above me and then like into me. And it felt like kind of just getting tackled by like an NFL linebacker. So boom, I tried to like swim to stay on top of it, but I started like spinning and kind of getting turned over. And then like after getting carried for a long, probably, I don't know, 180 yards or something like that, I came to a rest, like completely covered in snow. And I was like trying to move my limbs, like I could physically move. I wasn't hurt or anything, but like there's nowhere to go. You're just like cased in. And like, yeah, I tried to move everything and like just realized like I wasn't able to do anything. So I was like, I just kind of like tried to relax. I just kind of like passed out. And so yeah, I was unconscious for like 6 minutes while I was fully buried. But luckily the tip of my snowboard was sticking out. That's how they found you? Someone saw it, they started digging, and then eventually like got to my face. And luckily like just came back to on my own. Like my lips were blue and everything, but like I just kind of like came back in like you would from the dentist, But yeah, it was pretty gnarly. My wife was carried in it too. She was a little bit to the left of me, so got it a little bit less, but she was buried up to her stomach and was somehow able to like hoist herself. Like her boots were loose that day. She like got herself out of her boots and her snowboard, like onto the top, and started just like yelling, and eventually someone found my board. But yeah, it's pretty gnarly. I don't recommend it.
I mean, that's probably one of the most life-changing experiences possible, no?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I remember after that, you get like a little bit of like a renewed appreciation because you feel like you got like a second chance, and you're so close to obviously like, not being here. What was interesting is like we ended up moving to Jackson like a couple months later. I wasn't sure like if I'd have, PTSD or whatever you want to call it, like would be scared of skiing. But we ended up taking our what's called Avalanche 1, Abbey 1 course. And so like we learned a lot more about it. And had I known what I know now, I would have been a lot more aware and careful, and I would have been wearing all my stuff. Like even here at Jackson, like not today obviously, but like when it's even in balance, if it snows a bunch, like I have my gear.
Crazy. And then what would you say, just outside of getting a second chance, at life, how has it changed your outlook?
I think the appreciation for being able to just go out and do stuff. Obviously, like I think being here and building a company here, like you're confronted every day in a good way by just the presence and availability of doing stuff like this, which is super fun. But I think like I appreciate the opportunity to do that stuff.
I know I said this when I did the thing with Dave Gerhardt for the first time with the long game, that this was the coolest thing that I've ever done for work. I think this now officially beats that.
It eclipses it. It was more interesting golf there.
So where are we at in the mountain right now?
We're kind of like mid-mountain, at the top of Bridger Gondola. That's kind of the top of the head wall hike that we'll do later. And then over there is the top of the mountain. You can see Corbett's.
That's what we're not doing.
Right in that cut, which we'll see. That's probably a bit aggressive for today.
I'm out on that one, but I'm mentally ready for
the head walls. Just stay in between those trees and not on the cliffs and you're good to go.
All right, here goes nothing. You graduate from Stanford, you're on the job hunt. How did you come across Tech Validate?
So I had an internship my junior year summer at this company called S-Trade, which is like solar company in San Francisco. Anyway, the CEO happened to be a Brown alumni, and Steve, the other co-founder of Tech Validate, is now Brad. He is a Brown alumni, and so he just like blasted out this opportunity for, first salesperson to the Brown list, and it got forwarded to me, and I met him. It's actually kind of funny. I met Steve first. He came down to Stanford to do an interview, and I thought it'd be like a nice gesture to get a blue bottle of coffee for both of us. Like, I don't really drink coffee much, and like blue bottle is like boosting. And so I just like cranked the whole blue bottle of coffee, and I'm just like, woo, like super amped. But I guess I was excited enough to get the job. So yeah, I was the first salesperson there, which was a good learning experience because I didn't really have much of a sales background.
So let's talk about that. What was that experience like as the first sales hire?
That was different for me. I mean, I'm like, not like a natural born salesperson, or at least like the traditional image of that you think, where you're super outgoing and all that stuff. But at a startup, it worked kind of well because I was good at a lot of different things. And so in addition to the sales skill set, which was great for me to learn, I remember doing cold calls and like just picking up the phone. She's like, don't answer. That was super nerve-wracking for me. But like, I figured out how to do like mail merges through Microsoft Entourage and Excel to like get emails out at scale. And back then, like you sent like 120 emails, you scheduled like 14 meetings.
Those were the days.
Yeah, those were the days indeed. But yeah, eventually so I got good at systems. I had great coaching. Brad particularly was the other co-founder of Tech Validate, was a phenomenal salesperson, phenomenal entrepreneur. They also invested in a Sandler trainer. So Sandler is a sales methodology. So I worked once a week with this guy, Hillman, who's awesome. So yeah, really good training and development, and just kind of figured it out. And there was, it wasn't just sales. There's so much more at that early stage that you're doing, from figuring out how to source contacts at scale. It's like, like a good RevOps component to it, essentially. Which I ended up being pretty good at that skill set. So yeah, it was a phenomenal first experience.
So you went from SDR to director of sales in 4 years, right?
Yeah, every year was something new, which was cool. Just kept, learned how to be an SDR, learned how to be an AE and sell. Eventually learned how to manage people, which is a totally new skill set. But and yeah, eventually had a good sized org of like, 50, 60 people. So yeah, every year was a new challenge, and that kept it interesting and fun and exciting.
So Tech Validate was a bootstrap startup.
Yeah.
How did that shape how you approach business?
I didn't know any different at the time, so it was all I knew. But I think seeing it now that we've raised some venture money, that was a great environment to grow up in. That if you don't have a ton of money to play with externally, it forces you to get pretty operationally efficient and scrappy. So I think you learned really good business fundamentals just by not being able to cover up problems with a bunch of cash and using cash to cover growth issues. So yeah, it was hard, and I guess in retrospect felt slow at times because there's investments that you wanted to make that you couldn't. But yeah, I think phenomenal background to grow up in that sort of environment where you just don't have access to unlimited resources.
Yep. Yeah, I went from a bootstrap startup to a Series D startup that had raised 210 million. So I've seen both extremes.
Party.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different. But I think especially in this market, it's kind of come back into vogue, this efficiency. So I mean, obviously we've raised 14 million now to date, but we still bring a lot of that same operational discipline. And I think investors now, it's a combination of growth and efficiency. People pay a lot of attention to cost of acquisition and CAC payback periods and burn rates and ARR per employee and stuff like that. So it actually has fit kind of our mode of operating fairly well.
If you had to think back, what was the biggest lesson that you learned at Tech Validate that you didn't realize at the time?
I think one of the headspace, that there was challenging times at Tech Validate, there was good times at Tech Validate. In the moment, you always feel like, oh, this isn't gonna work, or like we're gonna be the biggest company ever. And a lot of times that happens, that transition between like, this is the best and this is the worst happens within the same day or week at least.
Afternoon sometimes.
Exactly, right? So just being able to keep a level head and focus on what you can control, which is like, just keep your head down at work. I mean, Ray and I, my co-founder, have this thing at User Evidence, which is just like, yeah, you just gotta show up and do the things. And if you do that enough, like you take a step back and you've actually accomplished some pretty big stuff. So I think it's just showing up every day and doing not so sexy work, and eventually that can build some pretty cool stuff.
All right, last question before we get going. So you mentioned Ray, and I was debating on bringing this up, but I'm gonna bring it up anyways. What was the funny Ray interview story?
Ray grew up in Kentucky. He used to sell beer for Anheuser-Busch. And he comes into the interview like, he's a big dude, he's like 6'4", but he has an even bigger suit, like the biggest suit that's just like, doesn't fit him at all. It's a super large, like black suit, just way overly formal for like a tiny like Berkeley startup, Yep. And he's just like, he's super nervous, like bright red face the whole time. I liked him, but I was like, I don't know about this guy. It's like, I'm not sure if he's cut out for whatever. Luckily, and I was a sales manager at the time, so it was like, I was definitely involved in the hiring process, but Brad, our CEO, talked to Ray. He's like, no, it's like Ray's gonna be sick, and so he overruled me on it. So I almost, if it's up to me, I might not have hired Ray. And Brad's like, you're an idiot. We're hiring him. I was like, all right, sure. And obviously that turned out to be a good decision.
Love it. Evan, where's your favorite place to snowboard?
Well, here, obviously.